don't be afraid to like make mistakes. You know, if a menu's not that great, it wasn't a great menu. It's fine. If a dish isn't that great, it's not a great dish. Okay, it's cool. Move on. Learn from it.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Pushing the boundaries in terms of flavour, textures and balance on a plate can test many a chef, but what if your own senses were a little different to most? What impact does that have on a chef's creations? Andrew McCrea is the chef patron of Perspective Dining in Brisbane, Queensland. Andrew, how are you?
Very well, Huck. How are you?
I'm good. Good to get you on the show. You got a popular little restaurant there up in Brisbane. How are things at the moment?
Good. I mean, it's like anywhere. It's dips and troughs. You know, it's hard times and there's really good times. So it's like being a father, really. You know, you have the really hard times, and then you just have these amazing times that you just wouldn't swap for anything.
That's beautiful. I love that. How is Brisbane at the moment? It's had this incredible evolution over the last decade, and you've been there. What's it like for you?
It's phenomenally amazing what's happening in Brisbane at the moment. Like when I first moved back here, I came from Sydney, and I had this amazing restaurant called 12 Micron, and it was a big restaurant, some amazing chefs, phenomenal menu. And I came back to run Parliament. It's a bit of a sidestep, and I bought for one of the restaurants. I thought I just did a little experiment, and I bought the exact same menu, obviously decompressed, same as what I had at 12 Micron, just to see what the uptake would be like. And they hated it. I thought, God, what have I done? But now, man, it's incredible. The amount of restaurants and talent that's in Brisbane. If someone told me 10 years ago it was going to be like this today, I would have gone, it's ridiculous. But here we are.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary. Back in the day when I was a restaurant critic, it's vastly different to now, and it's really the place to go at the moment in Australia. And your place is considered in that. Tell us a little bit about Perspective Dining.
Perspective was, I opened it with one table, just a big long table that I got from my kids' primary school, Catholic primary school. And I always tell the story how there's been a lot of nuns being spanked on that table. But I just sort of just threw all this acid wash on it and just went to town on it with all this like rust. And I just had 12 chairs. And it just started off me cooking kind of whatever I felt like cooking. And then it just evolved into what you see today, which is this crazy little restaurant that's beautiful and warm, and you sort of walk in and you feel like you've got this nice little blanket around you, so it's different than other sort of, it's different than other sort of two-hat restaurants where it wasn't never designed to make a lot of money. It was just more designed for me to sort of push my creative outlet and sort of set example as well for my children. I wanted my children to say, if you're a bit different, you don't need to be ashamed to be different or embarrassed to be different, like it was sort of 30 years ago. And that was one of the reasons I started it.
Well, tell us a little bit about your food. Is there a dish or two that sort of exemplifies sort of your approach?
A lot of my food is based, pretty much all my food is based on past past experiences or an emotion or a feeling or tied into a story. So, for example, there's a dish on there at the moment called Swimmers, and it's like this amazing line caught kingfish, and it's been sort of dry aged in this dolce for about 9 days, and then on top of it, the kingfish, there's like this like crayfish pate, and it's made with all these native flowers and stuff, and then wrapped around it is like the bacon from the belly of the kingfish that we sort of smoke in she oak, and then you've got the acid of these nubby little finger lime sort of caviar like globules on top, that are sort of fresh from our garden, and then the sauce is made from obviously the bones of the fish, but this little tamarind, this native tamarind called Diplodocus campbellii, which is like a real punchy sauce, and it's God, it's so simple, but it's just good cooking, just good cooking, and then, but it's from this place that we used to have, this little farm we used to have on the west coast of New Zealand, which is a place called Taylorville. And it did nothing, this farm. And my parents used to go there, I think because there's a pub across the road. And down the back of the farmhouse there was this old, it didn't have an inside toilet, and there was this old sort of laundry, and it had these sinks in it. And my mum used to go along. There's always crayfish in the sinks and like big sort of 20-litre buckets of white bait and river fish and stuff from the Grey River. And she used to come along and grab all the stuff out of this wash house and then stick it under her arm, this big crayfish, and then walk past this clothesline, this Hills hoist with with ducks and eels sort of hanging off it. And then about 11 minutes later, there would be like all this seafood. And I never used to like it because I was like, knee high to a grasshopper. And so she used to make bacon sandwiches for me. And that's where that dish came from. So, stuff like that. Like it's I try to think about, because I don't have, much going on in the sight region. I sort of like to, a lot of my stories come from like an emotional point, I suppose.
Yeah, that's an incredible connection to a dish, and it must make you, how does that make you feel when you create a dish like that with such memories and then seeing people enjoy it? What sort of impact does it have on you?
It gets me up in the morning. Like I've been cooking for so long, man, and I've never felt the satisfaction I feel when I produce food like that. And people, like they also, they get the story, they get the dish, but they get involved in it in ways that you wouldn't ever think, because they go back to their childhood or a story that they remember, or it's an incredible feeling,
Yeah. Well, there was an incredible image of your childhood. Take us back to New Zealand. What was life like for you? And were you always sort of inclined to get into food?
From a young age, I didn't really think about like doing it for a living. Like I was super connected to the ocean. I had a pretty rough childhood. My stepdad was a scuba diver instructor, and it was like a side hustle for him. And it was the one thing that connected us was the ocean. And so he didn't really care about my eyesight. And so when I was 13, I was like scuba diving off the beaches at Kaikoura, and swimming past 3-meter sharks and seals coming up to this far away from my mask, having a good look, trying not to completely shit myself. So I did things that kids that are blind don't normally do. So one day I'm sort of, it's a strange thing, when you have something to completely sort of ignore it or pretend it's not there, and after a while you just sort of assimilate it, and then you kind of just get on,
You've mentioned your vision a couple of times. Tell us a little bit about your vision and sort of what it's been like for you to get into a hospitality industry where there's knives and fire and such intensity with such little vision.
I was actually enrolled at law school, and I don't know why. I think I just wanted to please my parents. But I went on a surfing trip. And a really good friend of mine, we camped in this place called New Chums Bay. It was at the top of Coromandel. I just had this conniption, and I was like, man, I don't even know why I just can't go back to law school. And then this apprenticeship came up under this guy that was moving back to NZ, who was on the British cooking team, and he ran a few restaurants for Marco Pure White. And I was like, I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to do that, because at that time we were just like, we ran out of clothes because we were there for at this place for 3 weeks, and we kind of just made grass skirts, and we're just eating off the land, and I was like, man, I just want to do something completely different, and I'd always been involved in art, so art for me, even though I see in tones, art for me was like, I felt like a level playing field, especially at school, because I was good at it. I didn't really need to try. And, people kind of responded to me better in this the art world rather than the sport world. And so I just figured that was like where I sort of belong. And then I started this apprenticeship. Somehow I got the job because I just didn't shut up, I don't think. And I remember starting the apprenticeship, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, ever done. And it was back when kitchens were a lot crueler than they are today. Julienne of capsicum isn't the perfect size, so they throw your entire fridge out, and you have to start again and work all night to get it done again. So it was just coming up through that brigade system that really, and because I'd come from a hard childhood, I don't think that I had a really thick skin, And so that was the start of it. But once I got the bug, that creative bug, and people started to go, man, like create new things and get satisfaction from making dishes and creating experiences, I was off, and that was like 25 years ago. So, you don't ever get sick of it.
A lot of people have challenges sort of making their mark in hospitality and also finding a path in hospitality as well. It's a tough game. How did you navigate through? Like, what was sort of the moments for you early on that helped you sort of create a path?
I think the work ethic was a big thing for me. That was my main thing. Always show up early. If you're rostered on at 2, I was there at 10. And just be a sponge. Like just take on what everyone tells you. It doesn't matter if it's good or if it's bad. You just take it in, and then you can sort of you can sort it out once it's in there. And just take information from everybody. And I was always really good because with my memory, because I maybe not so good now, but at school, they didn't really, no one really cared about like none of the teachers really bothered with guys that had disability or like visual disabilities. So I had to I didn't sit in the front of the room because there was no point me sitting in the front of the room because I couldn't see the blackboard or the whiteboard anyway. So I sat at the back of the room and I just memorized everything that the teachers would say. And that's kind of how I got through school. So I just memorized it. And I sort of did that through my whole career. So when I was younger, I did most of my apprenticeship in pastry. And then I moved, onto garmager, and I sort of didn't really need to look at dockets. Same with entremetier and poisson. I just kind of just stuck in there. And so you like table 14, it's, I go, okay, that's 2 crayfish and a halibut. Cool. And then, and it just sort of stuck in there. And that kind of just went through my whole career. And as I went up through the brigade system, I just memorized different stuff,
Sort of through your career, has there been any sort of really important people or moments that have had a massive impact on you?
A turning moment for me was when it wasn't even, it was just like places, because I mean, I don't like, for people, I could walk past someone on the street, I have no idea who they are, or like when people come into perspective, I treat everyone exactly the same. I don't know who you are. I don't, even if you've been there before, I don't, unless you say something that sort of sticks in my mind, or there's something very distinct about your characteristics, I won't remember who you are. And so the first thing I think for me was picking up Alinea, the cookbook, and it just blew my mind. It blew my mind as far as like the level of creativity. And there's been, you've had people like, Thomas Keller and, the French Laundry Cookbook and all that sort of stuff. That was one thing that got me. And then the second one was dining. When I first arrived in Australia, I dined a Mark. And that blew me away, especially when I saw the kitchen. because you always like you always go, oh, you can't do anything. So many chefs have so many excuses. Oh, it's such a small kitchen. Can't do anything in this kitchen. What are you going to do in this space? And Mark, there's like 10 dudes in there with one core room, and they're all working on top of each other. It's like just a big conglomerate of just bodies just huddling together and just and there's perfect symmetry. It was almost like art. That was a massive refinement, like just a completely defining moment for me.
Tell us about that move to Australia. What was it like for you, and where did you get your foot in the door here?
So the first time I moved, I moved as soon as I finished my apprenticeship, and I moved to Melbourne, and I worked around the traps, and then I worked a little bit. I ended up at this place called the Athenaeum Club, and which was a really strange place. But I kind of moved around all the outlets, and I ended up running fine dining. And I was way too young to be doing that. But I think that was the hardest thing for me, because I never told anyone about my eyesight. In the interviews they go, oh, you got a good resume. Yeah. Then they go, oh, anything else we should know about you? And you go, oh, I got a little bit. I'm a bit short-sighted. They go, oh, yeah, no worries. That's just fine. Everyone's got something wrong with them. And then you get in there and you're like, okay, there's a lot of shit I've got to memorize here. A lot of shit. And then I came back 2007. I moved here, and I was working for a guy called Phil Inwood at a place called the Christchurch Club. And I got through him through another guy who was on the NZ cooking team. And Phil was like, he was like an alumni of like that sort of international cooking team sort of thing. And then he got me involved with another guy called Andy Mann, who was a Welsh guy who ran Tattersalls in Brisbane. And so I got in through him, and then I didn't spend very long at Tattersalls, because it was like it wasn't my kind of vibe. I was running fine dining, and it wasn't really, it was a bit heavy for me, and it wasn't really a team kind of thing. And then I sort of worked my way through hotels, because I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And hotels for me is a lot easier, because it's just a bit more structured than restaurants. And when I was coming up, the hotels was the thing. Restaurants weren't so much a thing. The sort of that 5 stars. It was big brigades, big kitchens. It sounds harder, but it's easier to memorize stuff in environments like that. And I just sort of worked my way up to exec, and then I ran a couple, and then I went from running a big 5-star that had like about 100 staff down to about 11 staff, at a place called the New Inchcom. And then I got my first hat there, 2015. A day after I got the hat, I moved to Auckland, and I ran 18 kitchens. We would go from sort of 60 chefs to 300 chefs. That was a lot of memorizing, man. There was a lot of memorizing. There was a lot of, hey, chef, hey, man, kind of thing,
How do you memorize in that scenario? Do you have a technique that you use? Or?
Yeah, I do. I had a system I called it Prep Me, and it was like every cool room every shelf in every cool room was numbered, and everything on that shelf was counted. And I'd go through and I'd just do a little sweep in the mornings, and that's how I knew how much stock I had. And then when it came time for production or plate up, so when you start doing like a la carte for like 5,000 people, you had like everything was color coded. So each kitchen was color coded, and every bench had a different color, and every name was attached to that color or that number, and it just sort of fitted like that.
You mentioned a little bit earlier that you see in tones, and I think your vision is about 6%. Correct me if I'm wrong, but tell us what the see in tones means, and how does that impact sort of your creativity as well? Like what role does that play?
Well, the thing is, I don't really know what you see compared to what I see. I know what I'm told. Like, I know that my t-shirt is black. because because I was told it was black. And I just went, oh, it's black tissue. But it could be red, it could be brown, it could be, it could be maroon. I wouldn't have a clue. And so, I mean, that's where the name perspective comes from. It's my perspective versus your perspective. And so what you see on the plate, I see completely different on the plate. And so I kind of take sort of comfort in the beauty that I see something pretty different in my art than what you might see. So a lot of colors I just kind of memorize, which is, it's kind of hard. I've got the greens and the yellows. I'm still not very good with that. I'm not good with the blues, pinks, purples, reds, violet. I'm not good with that stuff. But I can kind of go, that's in that ballpark vicinity. You know what I mean? Greys are easy. So I just kind of just memorize what I can that I think might be the closest to what that is. Yeah.
When you're creating dishes and working with other chefs who see differently to you, how does it go working together on a plate? Is it a challenge, or is there like something that's at a next level that is quite different to others?
It depends who the chef is as well. Like it's I try and work with sort of open-minded people, and so it was hard in the early days because the chefs have a certain way of how they want things and stuff like that, and you kind of have to memorize how they want it, and then now when you sort of collaborate with other chefs, it actually becomes more of a sort of an interesting take, I suppose, because they take things from it that they would never take from it, and I take things from them and I guess that if we would both have that 100% vision, we wouldn't necessarily be involved with, I suppose.
At the top of the show, you briefly mentioned 12 Micron. Tell us a little bit about that gig. How did you get it, and what were you doing there?
Man, I just got to Sydney. I moved from Auckland to Sydney, and I worked for this catering company that was awful. It was awful. And so I left the catering company, and we just had a baby, just about 6 months old or something, not even that, 3 months old. And I was going, what am I going to do? And then a friend of mine, he was running this bar called Untied, which was part of the Micron group. And he's like, dude, they need a head chef. They need someone who can do big brigades, who can organize people, who knows food, who's like logistically minded. And then at the time, there was a guy called Justin Wise, who was he was from The Point in Melbourne. He's a great chef. And he kind of just called me and said, just come in, let's have a chat. And then I just like, okay, all right. And I was like down to my last like skerrick of cash, So it was like the perfect time. And the restaurant, I was just blown away by the restaurant. As soon as I got in there, I was like, this is amazing. Like, it was just a beautiful restaurant. And then, Darren Purchase he was doing the pastry for it. So like, I didn't have to do too much pastry action. He had some incredible pastry chefs in there, and we just got this. We had to sort of wrangle this brigade together in like a month to open this restaurant. And we had some phenomenal chefs, and we had some I remember doing the opening night. There was like 4 dudes, and oh man! But it was such a nice experience. Yeah, and then I was working massive hours, as you do in Sydney. I mean, as you do anywhere, really. If you really love what you do, and then I got approached to run Parliament in Brisbane, and my wife she did all the behind the scenes stuff for that. And then I woke up one day and I was back in Brisbane. I was like, what the hell? this isn't Newtown. So, I don't know what happened to Micron. I think that it's kind of shut after a while. Being, it's one of the sad statistics of hospitality, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. You just sort of mentioned that you were shocked to be back in Brisbane, but it seems like you're really loving it there. What's it been like for you since you've been back and creating your own expression? What sort of impact has that had on you?
It's really made me love cooking again, and I think the big thing is there's something about making people happy that it's just like, you can have the worst day where everything goes wrong, things don't show up, stuff has to go back. There's like the weather's crap, so everything at the gun's like mashed up. But then you do dinner, and these people are just they're like you bring them genuine happiness. It's hard these days to bring people. You can have that sort of that spontaneous bit of happiness. Like when you buy something, or just that rush of dopamine where something happens and that's great, and then you kind of get over it. But to do it for like people in there for like 3 hours, and then they're like so happy and they're so content and they're in the moment, and then you sort of then they leave and they just like they walk out and they're like oh, that was great. That's the best feeling. I think that's the main reason why I do it, and I really thrive off that.
One of the things you said a bit earlier, which I really loved, was the message you're sending to your own children about sort of if you're doing something a little bit different, you can do it and succeed at it. Tell us a little bit about, for people out there in the industry that might be having their own challenges but wanting to carve a career. Like how do you get over those hurdles that are kind of challenging in life and be successful?
I think you need to find what you want to do. You can be making, croissants in a hole in the wall. It can be, making, like roasting coffee beans. Anything you want, but just if you're passionate about it, commit to it. Just commit to it and take the leap. It's not like, it's the hardest thing to do. It's the hardest thing. Opening Perspective was the hardest thing for me. I left a really good job, young family, mortgage, all those things, and man, I'm so glad I did it. I'm so glad. And regardless of what happens, regardless if the restaurant closes in a couple of years and I'd just go fishing, anything, I'm so glad I did it, So just do it. Just do it. Stop messing around. Just do it. And people find excuses. They find all these, we know it's tough. We know that the cost of living has gone up. We know that we get taxed a lot, but that's everywhere. It's not just here. It's everywhere, so just do it. I think that's the main thing, right? Because you only get one shot.
There's a lot of people loving what you're doing. What is it that you love about what you do?
I think the big thing, one of the things I love is you have full responsibility over what you do. There's no, you can't blame anyone. If something goes wrong, it's your fault. If something goes amazingly well, it's you. If something falls apart, it's your fault. And so, it's once you sort of take ownership of that and realize that that's what it is. There's no ceiling. You can do it. You can do whatever you want. And also, don't be afraid to like make mistakes. If a menu is not that great, it wasn't a great menu. It's fine. If a dish isn't that great, it's not a great dish. Okay, it's cool. Move on. Learn from it. Catalog it so you don't do it again. And then maybe, if you show other people, they won't do it again either. They won't do it either. So, it's I think that's once you realise that there's no ceiling and there's nobody to answer to. It's like it's like a dream. I mean, there's so many days I've sat in hotels and I've been there for 10 hours, and there's 100 guys knocking on the chef's office door asking about time off, or why they haven't been paid something, or a new menu, or where's my prosciutto, and then you've got to go to sit in a meeting about the price of bacon, and why how come the guests are how come they're getting an $18 bacon rather than a $10 bacon, you can't even compare the two. After you've been through, once you've been through that and you come out the other side, you just look back and go, man, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. My job was to provide someone with an amazing culinary experience, and you want to know about bacon? Come on,
Well, Andrew, absolute joy to connect with you and have you on the show. I can't wait to see where you go from here. So please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me on, Huck. Been awesome to chat with you.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Stay safe and be well.